Welcome to the Dynasty 365 show. I'm your host, Tyler Heil. I'm filling in for Stacey Perez while she is off gallivanting in Europe and across the Mediterranean Sea. And unlike Josh McDaniels, we are still here and ready to talk some football. Let's get to it. Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. Dynasty 365 is proudly part of the Fantasy and Frames podcast network, which includes Dynasty 365, Fourth and Frames, our redraft show, and Shoot the Gap, our IDP show with Jorge and Nate Markham. And they are very good at it. And I'm joined by our IDP person and our CEO of Fantasy and Frames, Jorge Edwards. Jorge, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic. It is great to, keep being on Dynasty 365. A lot of cool Dynasty stuff to talk about tonight. A lot of cool player performances of rookies and second-year players. Just whole lot of awesomeness. How are you, Tyler?
I'm great. I had Halloween last night. I got to wear my ridiculous costume again. So I had fun, even though it was freaking cold in North Carolina. I hate it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my in-laws, they live in Pennsylvania, and we were just talking the other day about the El Nino that's going to be hitting the East Coast, and apparently it's supposed to get colder south, and then up where they're at, it's supposed to be actually warmer. So that's going to be kind of an interesting little weather scenario going on here in the United States on the East Coast.
That should be fun. But as far as I know, it's going to be like 70 and sunny. So I'm excited. I'm also excited to stop small talking about the weather and get into talking about football.
Love it.
So please remember to drop your comments or questions into the chat. If you have trade questions, throw those in too. Before we get into too much football, being at spooky season still, it is not Christmas time yet. We are almost there. Calm down, Jorge.
Oh, come on.
I want to compare some players to candy. So did you have a good one at all, Jorge?
No. I will say this. No, I do not. Hopefully you do. Definitely left that part blank on the show sheet by accident.
Fair enough. I do have one, and it is kind of my personal opinion here, but criminally underrated, criminally devalued. The 100 grand candy bar, it slaps. And you know what? If you say differently, you're just wrong. And you know what else is criminally underrated? Mr. Roderick Christopher Godwin. Last 4 weeks, he's totaled 37 targets, 25 receptions, 311 yards, and a touchdown. The guy's still only 27 years old. He's done nothing produce. He's still putting up all kinds of numbers with Mike Evans out there, with Baker Mayfield under center. Let's give Christopher Godwin a little respect, a little bit more respect.
Yeah, we'll give him. We'll give him a fourth round rookie pick grade there to go along with his fourth round rookie pick quality of catch in the end zone on a Hail Mary pass that went uncaught last week on Thursday Night Football.
You know what? It doesn't change his fantasy production, all right?
This is true. This is true. And he didn't get to turn his head around at the right time, so I'm kind of giving him more crap than he's deserving. But no, you're 100% right. Not sure I agree with 100 grand being an awesome candy, but seeing as how I wasn't prepared for that particular segment, I can't really say shit to you, can I?
Yeah, eat it. Literally. And hello, Bob Harris. I see you in the chat. We are going to jump into our first segment, our favorites from this past weekend. All right. So, Jorge, before we do that, I see we have a question in the chat from Josh. Would you trade K9 and Thielen for Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper? 16-man PPR. Roster is Burrow, CMC, Kamara, Amon-Ra, Thielen, Logan Thomas, Hall, Chiefs, Jake Elliott, Kenneth Walker on the bench. Okay. Hall. Who's Hall?
Am I too old? Yeah, I'm assuming that's what he means. Okay. But I'm more stuck on K9. Am I just not hip with the lingo anymore? What is
I was really hoping you knew what K9 was.
I'm like, K9. Yeah, I have no idea. If you could drop that in the YouTube chat. We're old here, Josh, so you're going to have to keep us hip with the lingo there.
With a dog of some kind.
That is true. It is referred to normally as a dog. Kenneth Walker. Thank you. Thank you, Gator.
Okay. I've never heard anyone call him that.
I know. That's like K12. I get 12th man, Seattle. There's the connection. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We trade Kenneth Walker and Thielen for Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper. Your running backs are CMC, Kamara.
I'm assuming this is a redraft, right?
I would hope it's Dynasty, given the fact that this is the Dynasty 365 show. But let's tackle it from a Dynasty perspective, and if we need to go to redraft, we'll go to redraft. How about that? Sound good?
Okay, that's fair.
So for a Dynasty, if Zach Charbonnet wasn't waiting in the wings to, the fact that Zach Charbonnet is kind of waiting in the wings there to assume more snaps there in Seattle, I would kind of make that trade. If he wasn't there, I'd hold on to Kenneth Walker.
Yes, and I'm always going the highest value player side, and that's Jamar Chase. Yep. It's a 16-man league. It's full PPR. That separates Jamar Chase even more from the competition. I know he said his running back department. He said my running back department is great, but I have literally no wide receiver on the bench, so that's why Amari would be a good addition.
And of course, he says it's redraft, so that's fantastic. But yeah, I think that I could think the same logic would apply in this particular scenario.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper side.
Yeah.
So, our past weekend favorites. Jorge, what was your favorite moment from Week 7?
I don't want to say like the dominance, but the continuous solid performances from Josh Downs. Carried through last week. 13.8 points per game, half PPR over the past 4 games. When I dug deeper into his metrics and his advanced stats, this guy is like tearing up zone defenses left and right. And he has another great matchup versus Carolina this week, which plays a lot of zone. So he is in line for another high performing performance, for lack of a better expression, this week. It's just so good to see it finally clicking. When we look at the efficiency, when we look at targets, yes, Michael Pittman is technically getting targeted more, getting more receptions. When we talk about the efficiency, yards after the catch, when we're talking about yards after the catch per reception, when we're talking about, primary reads, target share. I mean, Josh Downs in the past 3 weeks, he's like literally right there on the cusp of, usurping Michael Pittman in a lot of those categories. And so I only see the sky or the rocket continuing to rise there. It's really impressive to see what he's doing in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. And they can coexist. Michael Pittman and Josh Downs.
Oh, absolutely. They have been. I mean, they have been, right?
Yeah.
It's just when you look at, what Downs is bringing to the table, he's just doing it so much better than Michael Pittman. Pittman is a benefit of target volume, I think. But as far as overall play, as well as the matchup, again, going against zone defenses, Josh Downs is killing it.
He is. And Gardner Minshew's thrown the ball over 40 times a game 3 times this year. He's thrown it over 50 times once. Like they're slinging that thing around. So
yeah,
they can absolutely both coexist. My favorite part is actually, unfortunately, not totally fantasy football related, but it somewhat is. Josh McDaniels being fired. That was my favorite moment of this past week. I will never forgive Josh. I'm not a Colts fan by any means. I don't give a crap about the Colts. Like, good for them if they're good. What Josh McDaniels did to the Colts when he accepted that job, hired a bunch of people, had them move to Indianapolis, and then back out at the last minute, I think that's disrespectful. I think it's shameful, and I don't think he should have ever been rehired as a head coach. Josh McDaniels got what he deserved. Mark Davis got what he deserved. Everyone got what they deserved. And if I am going to relate this to fantasy football, I think this is good for fantasy football and the Raiders. I think Devontae is going to come out and show that he's still one of the best wide receivers in the game. Josh Jacobs is going to come out and show that he's still one of the best running backs in the game. They're going to put them in a position to win, and it's not going to be Josh McDaniels' way or the highway. So I think this is a good thing for the entirety of the Raiders' offensive unit and fantasy output. All right, let's get into our next segment of Boom and Bust. So, boom and bust. We are going to give you a player whose dynasty value took a jump this week and whose dynasty value might have taken a dip this week. It's not necessarily based off them having a boom or bust week. It might often coincide with that, but we're focused on value here. And before we get that, please, if you are watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and watch our other shows. Tuesday nights, we have the FIF Waiver Show hosted by Gator, who is behind the glass right now. And Thursday nights, we have the FIF Mailbag Show. They answer all of your questions from offense, defense, dynasty, start, sit, trade questions, you name it. All of it. They will answer it. The boom or bust. Jorge, I'm going to start with you. Let's. Okay. I want to start with the bust first because I want to end on a high note.
There you go. Good call. It doesn't get more of a bust than Miles Sanders. He's been just not efficient. He's just not been playing well this year. Coming into the season, we thought that this player was going to be a sneaky value for you in your dynasty leagues. Get him on the cheap, walking into a 3-down role. Then it's a week before the season starts, and all of a sudden Frank Reich's like, well, we may not actually be using him in a 3-down role, to which everybody's like, we get what you're saying, wink, wink, but you really are, right? And then when they do, it just hasn't been panning out. When you look at half PPR scoring, he's only played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. He's averaging 10.4 points per game. Week 8, he had 2 attempts for 0 yards. Week 5, before then, 7 for 32. I mean, it's just not there. When Chuba Hubbard starts eating into your workload, and he starts becoming, his name starts getting tossed around as fantasy viable, which I don't think it is. Like, I know he had like a good game, but the fact that we're considering Chuba Hubbard to be a super fantasy viable running back, that's kind of sad. So whatever perceived value you were hoping to cash in with Miles Sanders earlier in the year, when you could have gotten him for the cheap, and you were probably thinking maybe I can flip him later on, you're not flipping him for anything, for much. So he definitely, his performance last week, and and he had all this time to come back from the injury that he'd been dealing with, and it just, I don't know. It's not good. It's not looking good.
It's not, and he's there for at least another year too. I just pulled up Miles Sanders' contract. He is not going anywhere next year. His dead cap next year would be $8.5 million. His cap hit is $7.7 million. They would lose money against the cap if they cut him. So they're going to have an overpaid running back that is not playing and not producing. So that is unfortunate. I hope you traded Miles Sanders when he got that contract.
Yeah. So seriously,
my bust is Jameson Williams. He's not dead to me, so I don't want to make it sound like that, but I am freaking concerned. He's been outplayed by Josh Reynolds. He's not producing. He was injured last year. He was suspended this year. But it's not like he hasn't been around the team. It's not like he hasn't been around the offense. he should be able to, at this point, he should be able to jump in and know what he's doing and know where to be and be a productive player in that offense when you're drafted as high as he was. And the fact that the Lions lost Marvin Jones, which for personal reasons, whatever that was, and they felt the need to go out and get Donovan Peoples-Jones at the trade deadline, that concerns me for Jameson Williams' value overall. I mean, they're clearly not expecting him to play some big role when they continue to try to acquire fringe wide receivers. So I am concerned about the value of Jameson Williams.
Yeah, he seems to be more competent getting around the DraftKings app than he does the actual football field. So, yeah, I don't know. And you saw the drops that happened on Monday night. And then literally the next day they get Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's like basically everything the Lions hoped Jameson Williams would be. So definitely taking a hit there. He was not doing himself any favors, albeit totally out of his control, getting injured, coming off the ACL, coming out of college. He comes back. He has one deep touchdown pass his rookie year, and then the rest of it is forgettable. He enters this year after getting the suspension cut short, has one big touchdown pass, and then has been pretty much forgettable. And now you just trade, for basically the same type of player. Yeah, it's I'm moving to him down my dynasty rankings, which will be updated by the end of the week over at fantasyandframes.com. Pretty far down. There's not a lot of upside right now with Jameson Williams.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to a little bit of a higher note. Who is your boom this week, Jorge?
So Jackson Smith-Njigba is finally making the turn. Back-to-back games with back-to-back touchdowns, double-digit fantasy points and half PPR scoring. One of the things that I had hypothesized, a few weeks ago before the Seahawks came off of their bye, is that the offensive line has had such issues staying healthy that Geno Smith hasn't basically been able to have enough time to really pepper these wide receivers with multiple targets. But then all of a sudden the tackles start getting healthy. Geno Smith has enough time. They start running more 3 wide receiver sets. And all of a sudden JSN is starting to flourish. What's really impressive is, again, he's really good in zone. He's really good in zone also. But Cleveland actually runs more man than zone last week. And even against man coverage, where that's not exactly JSN's forte in terms of beating, he still put up a touchdown and had great yards after the catch. So, I think as the season progresses, you're going to see another rookie wide receiver this year take the next steps to being a solid fantasy option. And for Dynasty, his value is climbing each and every week. He scores a touchdown or he gets 70 yards. One of the two. He gets both. It's climbing up even more. We joke about for years, well, not every draft class is going to have an Odell Beckham or a Mike Evans, harking back to 2012, right? Kind of are. Look at the wide receivers. We got Josh Downs, we got Zay Flowers, we got JSN,
Jordan Addison.
I mean, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary how well these players are playing so early on in their short careers.
Yeah, they just keep getting better and better every year, and which makes those second round picks in your rookie drafts even more valuable.
Absolutely.
And the only thing more impressive than JSN's performance this week was DK Metcalf's blatant hold on the game-sealing touchdown that did not get called. So that was very impressive.
Spoken like a true Browns fan. Love it.
Please go back and watch it. It was terrible. Like
they
showed the replay of DK Metcalf stop holding, and then look directly at the ref like, oh shit, waiting for the flag, and it never came.
You got to feel for PJ Walker though. He played his heart out. He may not have shown, where it counts, but that sucks. I thought he played pretty well this past week.
He's a backup NFL quarterback. He's not cut out for starting all these games. I'm still a little weirded out by the Browns starting DTR one game, then be like, nah, that's not it. Let's start this XFL guy. Okay, I don't know what happened there. I'm still a little confused by it. And DTR is Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the unanointed of us.
You know why? Because DTR, the one game he played, got beat to you know what, left and right, hitting the ground. Do you remember in the movie The Water Boy, where they had the scene where they went to like the fake sports center, where they're like, and even though the Mud Dogs are using their water boy, other colleges from around the country are adopting a similar philosophy, like the University of Michigan, who use their towel boy as their slot wide receiver. And then you saw the towel boy running across the middle and get absolutely wrecked by that linebacker. That's what happened to DTR the one game he played. And Stefanski's like, never again. Nope, not happening.
I don't want to ruin this kid before he ever gets a chance to play.
Exactly.
So my boom this week is going to be Rashid Shaheed. This was his first 100-yard game of his career. He showed the speed that he has, and we are all finally reminded that Derek Carr can and will throw the ball deep when given the opportunity. He has been that guy for the last few years. Before he left the Raiders, he was in the top 10 of target depth each of his last 2 seasons. So they just need to stop with this stupid Joe Lombardi, Sean Payton offense. Like, they're not Sean Payton. Sean Payton was really good at this because he was a brilliant game planner and a brilliant play caller. These guys are not it. Like, let's open up this offense a little bit and stop with the conservative football marriage made in hell. Anyway, Rashid Shaheed, I kind of said it around the draft last year. I didn't think the Saints would be looking for a highly drafted wide receiver because I thought they already had their wide receiver 2 on their roster in Rashid Shaheed. He's getting a good opportunity this year to develop more while Michael Thomas takes a whole lot of snaps, who's playing pretty well, Michael Thomas is. And he's given Rashid Shaheed that opportunity to learn behind a veteran and get even better and come into his own next year when he does have that true wide receiver 2 role. So I'm excited for Rashid Shaheed. I like his value. Chris Olave is still the number 1 there, but Shaheed could be a nice little addition to your team. Side note, I think everyone here would have been expecting one of us to say Will Levis. I'm not there yet. Let's calm down. All right. That he has a really strong arm. We knew that. He can throw the ball deep to DeAndre Hopkins. He's not the second coming. Like, let's take it easy. Do you disagree with that?
No, I look, everybody was impressed with what he did, on Sunday. But did you see the interaction with him and Mike Vrabel after the game when they were walking back into the locker room?
I did not.
Okay. So did you ever see the Key and Peele skit? I'm just going to be throwing references left and right, so just get ready for them. Did you ever see the Key and Peele skit where like or on Instagram, they overlaid the Key and Peele skit with like Star Wars memes. And so like you see I forget who it is. I forget who it is. One of them is the president, and he goes up to the one that has Rogue One.
Oh,
yes. He's like, giving him the handshake, right. Doing the fist bump and everything.
The nice handshaking with all the white people.
Yes, exactly. That was pretty much what it was like watching Will Levis and Mike Vrabel, because then Levis goes inside and then Vrabel's like to one of his guys, hey, what's up? Good job, good job, good job. But then it's like with Levis, it's like shaking your hand. Okay, on your way. There's something odd there. I don't know what it is. There's something odd there. A lot of reports, a lot of rumors, a lot of hearsay speculation are like, well, he's not exactly Vrabel's kind of guy, or he's not his guy, or something along those lines. And you can read into that what you want to read into that, whether that's just BS that you're reading on Twitter, but was it his choice to go after him? I don't know. I just find it to be very interesting. We don't know what the status of Ryan Tannehill is. Is he coming back this week? Is he going to be out longer? I don't know. But it's hard to ignore what he did. And going against Pittsburgh this week, And then you look at the fantasy playoff stretch, not exactly hitting it. And for those who are wanting to hear more about Will Levis, go back, Fantasy and Frames on YouTube, watch our waiver wire show from last night. Gator J and Zach, we're talking about Will Levis, talking about the exact same thing, the fantasy schedule, playoff schedule coming up. If he is the starter, it's kind of favorable. And again, I'm with you, Tyler. Wait and see. Let's see what happens. But I think he's earned at least a bench spot, given how quarterbacks are also just falling down like flies around the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna start him in a league this week because why not? Why not have that glory play of, hey, I picked this guy up off the waiver wire and he put up 30. I did that with Sam Howell last week. Picked up Sam Howell, threw him in. He put up 31 points for me. It feels good.
So right here, Dynasty Deviant, a.k.a. Chris Burns, who we miss you on the show, man. We can't wait till you come back. Says, didn't Mariota throw 4 touchdowns in his first game as a Titan too? Yes. Against Jameis Winston and the Bucs. I remember that year very well. But I bring this up, and I put his name on there, at Dynasty Deviant, because him and Preston Evans, 2 of our content creators at Fantasy and Frames, had a pie bet going on over who was going to win, Miami Dolphins or the New England Patriots on Sunday. Fortunately for Chris Burns, the Dolphins won, which means Preston Evans on the pregame show this week will be taking a pie to the face, which brings me to you, sir, Mr. Tyler Heil.
Uh-oh.
You and I, in the Dawson division of the Kings Classic, are taking on each other both in the snake and auction divisions.
Yes, we are.
So I will say this. You let me know what your thoughts are with this. This time, next week, Dynasty 365, pie bets for both matchups. If I win the snake, you take a pie to the face. If you win the auction, I take a pie in the face. Both of us be wearing pies on our faces this time next week.
There's no canceling out. It's 1-1.
Fine. Exactly.
Well, no, I'm asking you. If you win one and I win one, we both take a pie. It doesn't mean neither of us take a pie.
Yes. Because at that point, let's just have some fun with it.
Okay. Well, I hope you will be taking 2 pies next week because I'm in.
Awesome. Love it. There you have it, folks.
I'm excited. I see you liking Hal as a person. Hey, I always said I'm sure he was just a fine person. I'm sure his mother loves him very much. Speaking of that, or not at all, we're going to get into a little Dynasty buy or sell.
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to, again, Fantasy J77, a.k.a. Gator J, a.k.a. Gator. Banger music, man, and making all these video clips that we're incorporating into all of our shows on the Fantasy and Frames podcast. Loving it.
They're great. I'm really enjoying it. It's getting me a little hyped as we go into our new segments here. So buy or sell. If you aren't active in Dynasty and you're going stagnant, you're probably losing. So you always want to be buying. You always want to be selling. You want to be churning your roster, even if it's the bottom of your roster. You want to be churning it, moving it in and out, gaining value where you can. So we're both going to pick out a buy and sell here. Jorge, why don't you give me your buy first?
My buy is Zach Charbonnet, rookie running back with Seattle Seahawks. Last week, on just 5 attempts, 53 yards, 10.6 yards per carry. This season, he's been averaging 5.8 yards per carry. Look, obviously, elephant in the room, Kenneth Walker's still there, right? And it looks like with Kenneth Walker is there, he's going to get the bulk of the touches. But Kenneth Walker has also been battling injuries, a lot of injuries this year, or maybe it's just the same one and it's just been lingering. Either way, health has been a concern. We almost saw Charbonnet take the lead role last week until the last second. Oh, I'm good to play, coach, came up with Kenneth Walker. And then we saw what happened there. But, it's one of those things where as I mentioned earlier, this passing attack for the Seahawks is going to take off. You're seeing it. It's going to happen, period. But eventually they're going to have to play honest and focus on the running game also keep things balanced. And with, Kenneth Walker's injury concerns, Charbonnet has been playing very efficiently, and he's in a really good spot. And if he can, in opportunities where Walker is just not there or just has limited snaps because of injuries, he could very well assert himself as that 1B that a lot of people were hoping that he would have started the season with. And, I think at this point, you are probably giving up, and Tyler, you can let me know what your thoughts here with this in terms of trade value. You're probably giving up a high 2 or a low 1 for Charbonnet. And I think this is as cheap as you're probably going to get him if what I'm thinking is going to happen actually does end up happening this season.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I'm not paying a low 1 for Zach Charbonnet. I'll tell you that right now. If I can get him for a 2, I think I would do it. But I'm not paying a whole lot more than that because, frankly, Kenneth Walker is a better football player than him. And I'm not trying to diminish Charbonnet there. Like, I wasn't crazy about Charbonnet, but he was my RB7 coming out. So he wasn't dead to me. Like, I like him, but he's a very specific kind of football player. He's a one cut and go guy. He's not going to make a ton of people miss. He can run you over, but Kenneth Walker is just an explosive player. Period. I think he's better than him when he's on the field, and the Seahawks know that. So I don't see Charbonnet taking this lead role and being an every week starter. So that is why I wouldn't be paying a low first for him.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense there.
All right. My buy is going to be the aforementioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. As a Browns fan, I was very sad to see DPJ go. He was a kind of a homegrown guy. We'll call him homegrown, even though he went to the University of Michigan, and some dumb people in Cleveland are crazy about Ohio State, whatever. I'm not getting into that right now. But DPJ has been a Brown since he was drafted. He's developed. He's looked really good. He's been a really important player for that team on special teams. He's been a huge contributor in the receiving game for them, whether it was as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, a deep threat. 2022, DPJ actually had the opportunity to be the wide receiver 2 on that team, and he took that opportunity, even on a run-first team with Jacoby Brissett, who played well, but they were absolutely running the ball more than they were passing. He had 96 targets, 61 receptions for 839 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, his career yards per reception are 15.7. So this guy's a deep ball maven. He's going to – I'm a little worried that he's just going to cancel out Jameson Williams. But if he can get comfortable in this offense, I think he's instantly the wide receiver 2 on that team. So I'm pretty excited for Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I think you could absolutely go out and throw a 3rd rounder at someone and get him. And I don't think anyone's really going to argue with that. Do you disagree with that value there, Jorge?
No, 100%. I agree with that. You are looking at what's going on in Detroit and just how confident that offense is looking. And let's face it, they're going to need somebody to step up because I'm not liking what I'm seeing with Amon-Ra always on the injury report. You take him away, you have Laporta, you have Jahmyr Gibbs. When Montgomery comes back, you have Montgomery, but you need another passing attack weapon there. And I think they got it in DPJ, and I think you're going to see Jameson Williams take a back seat. So if you're able to get him at that price, I don't even know if you. I don't know if you need a 2 and a 3. I would think maybe high 3, low 2. To be honest with you, until you see. I don't know what was your pick value again that you would want to give up for him?
3rd rounder. I mean, I would absolutely give up an early 3rd for him.
Yeah, that sounds actually really fair.
Okay, so you would sell him for a third rounder.
Would I sell him for a third round? I mean, that's pretty much. Let me put it like that: the market probably would say that third round is where you're getting him until he blows up next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, he's a solid 2. Like, no, you can get him for a 3, and you're probably selling him for a 3.
Absolutely. All right. Sell. So speaking of sell, who's your sell this week, Jorge?
It's Aaron Jones, man. And honestly, it's not a great time to sell him because he's only played in 4 games. This hamstring injury is still lingering. Today, he was wearing the non-contact jersey at practice. He came back, had 7 attempts for 29 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, but only got you in half PPR scoring, 6.6 points. Outside of week 1, where he had 25.7, it's been 1.9, 7.2, and 6.6. A.J. Dillon has been starting to take more of a lead role, and that's concerning because we all knew heading into the season, no Aaron Rodgers, unknown with Jordan Love, which now Brian Gunderkuntz doesn't even know if he's the future anymore, according to the report that came out today.
It's playing terribly.
Yeah. When insert name former Penn State quarterback is now being talked about starting this week, that's not
get the what? They're talking about starting Sean Clifford.
Yes, that was a report that came out today. It was discussed. So that is a little concerning. Anyhow, with that quarterback situation, you knew heading into the season that this should have been a very run first heavy offense with both Dillon and Aaron Jones kind of continuing on what they had been doing down the stretch last season. No, Aaron Jones injured hamstring, and we're looking at this track record, for Aaron Jones going back to 2017 in terms of games played, 12, 12, 16, 14, 15, 17. Now we're at 4. And honestly, I would be shocked if he plays 10 games this year. The way things are progressing, or should I say, not progressing in his favor. So I'm begging, I am praying for like 2 really solid games from him, and I am trying to sell him for whatever I can get at this point.
Oh, that makes me sad because he was a big time investment for me in redraft this year.
No, I hear you.
All right. Quickly, my sell is going to be Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's a wide receiver 22 on the season. He's been the wide receiver 1 on the Broncos. He just turned 28 this year. He's most likely not going to be on the Broncos next year. They could save over $10 million in cap space by cutting or trading him. So we'll kind of see what happens there. I'm still unsure of how Sean Payton is going to handle that. But most of his production, the problem with it and why I'm selling him, it's touchdowns. And touchdowns are not a sticky stat for wide receivers. He's tied for 3rd in the NFL with 6 receiving touchdowns. And he has less than 400 receiving yards. Like that is inconsistency at its finest. He is just ready to fall off, especially with Jared Jeudy actually playing somewhat decently again. So I'm selling Cortland Sutton. If I could somehow get a 2nd and a 3rd based off name value, or trade him for one of these young guys like Josh Downs or Rashee Rice, I'm doing that in a second.
No, absolutely. You know what? He would make a great tight end. He's putting up tight end metrics if your name isn't Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta this year. It's pretty much the performance you're getting out of Cortland Sutton. Let's not forget Stacy's guy, Marvin Mims, is there. They want to get younger. They drafted him where they drafted him so highly for a reason. And, up until the trade deadline, there had been reports that Cortland Sutton throughout the season was a speculative trade candidate. So, yeah, I feel you there. I feel you there.
Oh, all right. So let's wrap this up with our last segment and pull out our crystal ball for our fantasy crystal. All right, let's see how many more times I can say crystal ball before we end this crystal ball segment.
You know what I really wish the audio would be from that? For that, like the Wayne's World, do-do-do, 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 do-do-do. You know what I mean? Gator, let's see if we can get that going for next week, even though that would be total copyright infringement. But we don't care because do what we do, you know?
Hey, man, if we can get a cease and desist letter, that means we're doing something right.
That's right. Oh, you know it, folks. That's how we roll. Not really. We don't want to piss anybody off.
But Jorge, who is your prediction to have a big week this week?
I would say Flowers, Baltimore Ravens, coming off of a down week this past week, but he is the guy in Baltimore at the wide receiver position, taking on the Seattle Seahawks, giving up the 8th most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. You love everything you see out of Zay Flowers. Just had a bad week, and I think he bounces back in a big way against Seattle.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. I think he's already clearly the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore.
And despite Odell Beckham Jr. throwing a fit on the sideline, this is not a case this week of squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's Zay Flowers in that receiving core.
Absolutely. And if you need more crystal ball predictions, please join us on Sunday mornings for our pregame show from 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time. Nate Markham usually steers the ship on that one. We have a conglomeration of Fantasy and Frames folks that jump on.
So that is not true. So let me stop you right now because Gator J behind the glass is shaking his head in disapproval. Typically, Gator J is steering the ship on time, I should say. Nate Markham has just been filling in the past couple weeks because Gator is getting his party on in Jacksonville last weekend. But yes, it is a fun time on that show. So definitely, if you have any more Dynasty questions, we're there to answer that then.
Yes. Please join us 9 a.m. to noon Eastern on Sundays as Gator J guides you into your week and setting your lineups. So my crystal ball prediction this week is going to be Demario Douglas. Some people still might not have heard of him. I think he was kind of a waiver wire darling this week. But he is newly what I believe is the wide receiver 1 on the New England Patriots. The Pats were just starting to realize that Kendrick Bourne was one of their only guys that they could depend on to consistently move that ball because they do not have a lot of juice on that offense. They don't have many playmakers at all. And unfortunately, Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL, and Demario Douglas immediately led all of the Patriots wide receivers in snaps. He had 41 last week. Kendrick Bourne had 32. Jalen Reagor, had 31. Devontae Parker had 23. And Juju Smith-Schuster, who just seems like he's dead now, had 18. He also led the Pats in targets and receptions. And he has played most of his snaps in the slot this year. He played a little more out wide last week after Kendrick Bourne got injured. So I'll be curious to see where he plays his snaps. But if he can draw Danny Johnson from the Commanders this week, I'd say that's a pretty good matchup. Other than that, I hope he does not draw Fuller. That would not be good for him. But I think Demario Douglas will manage to have a big week this week because they will likely hyper-target him as one of the only capable receivers on that offense.
On a completely useless side note, let me talk about Juju Smith-Schuster for a second. I am surprised that he is still playing, like physically able to go out there and play football, let alone do anything remotely fantasy relevant, because I believe before week 1, the doctor's reports were like, we have no idea how his knee has not exploded yet. And I'm like, okay, how is this not a bigger story? Like that seems to be a pretty big deal. You know what I mean? So for him to get 18 snaps, good kudos to you, Juju. That's impressive.
Absolutely. And they gave him the same contract that Jacoby Myers got out in Las Vegas, who is playing far better football than Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
Anyway, Everyone, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for hanging out. You can follow us on Twitter at Jorge B. Edwards. You can follow me on Twitter at FF Tyler Heil. Please visit the Fantasy and Frames website, fantasyandframes.com, for all of our updated rankings from our Fantasy Pros verified rankers, Jorge Edwards, Nate Markham, and myself. Please subscribe to our Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel and other social media channels, such as the aforementioned Twitter or X, and TikTok and Instagram. We've got it all. And Facebook. Don't want to forget that one. So don't forget to stick around on our YouTube channel for our Wednesday Power 3 Hours. We are immediately being followed by our Fourth and Frames Redraft podcast. And then our IDP crew, Nate and Jorge. And who else is on with you tonight, Jorge?
So normally it's Nate, Hollywood Titan, and myself. But tonight it's going to be just Nate Markham and myself.
All right. So join Nate and Jorge at 10 p.m. Eastern as they close out Fantasy and Frames Wednesday. So everyone, thank you for hanging out. May all of your championship dreams come true. Cheers.